Cooper, and today I'm back with a brand new Doctor Who Classic Series review. We've got a bit of a nicer setup this time, which obviously looks probably a bit different, hopefully a bit better, but yes, very exciting stuff. A few things to mention before we start this video. If you missed last week's review of the Sontaran experiment, first of all, check it out. Second of all, you might be wondering why there wasn't a one about Genesis, and that's because we reviewed Genesis of the Daleks last year on this channel right after Series 11. It's not the same quality, obviously, but it's still good enough and it's still there and it still holds the same opinions that I hold to this day. It's a brilliant story, but if you want to check out my specific review on it, it is on the channel, so you can go and find that. So today I thought we'd continue on with Revenge of the Cybermen, and please do obviously make sure to stick around towards the end of the video to find out what season of Classic Who we're going to be doing next on the whole review schedule type thing. But yes, without any further ado, let's get right into this episode, starting with the story, of course, then first act, last act, characters, best bits out of 10, as per usual. The story. The Doctor, Sarah and Harry find themselves back at Nerva Station around about the same time period where the TARDIS is about to materialise, obviously with a few hours either side delaying that factor. This is many years in the past before we see the Nerva Station in the Ark in space. The ship is infected with some sort of plague, which actually turns out to be the Cybermen slowly invading, and they want to commit genocide. So it's an interesting kind of starting point for a story. It certainly drags you in. There's definitely a few downsides. Obviously it's not a fan favourite particularly, at least I don't think, but I have some quite positive thoughts on this. So we'll start with the first half, episodes 1 and 2. The first half, like most classic Doctor Who serials, are fine. They're not the highlight of the story. I find that the most enjoyment I get out of Classic Who is in the last act, the last half of the story, where things start to pick up a little bit, where characters become more interesting and start to double cross each other and all that sort of thing. I don't particularly love first halves of Doctor Who stories in Classic Who, but you know, I haven't seen most of them yet. I've still not seen many, so maybe that's just what I've seen so far. But for here, it kind of was that, kind of wasn't. I really like the first episode, of the story, with the main cast sort of walking about the station, seeing what's going on, finding this plague, and slowly but surely encountering things. We get the reveal of the Cybermen in the first half. We also see Sarah Jane get attacked by a Cybermat, where she conducts like a virus. She gets put unconscious, she almost dies, she's just teleported down to the surface of a planet. It is interesting stuff, and obviously with the Cybermen appearing at the station towards the end of the story, that was also very exciting stuff. There's not too much else to say about the first half. It's not amazing, but it's certainly interesting, and it certainly did pick up a lot more than what I was expecting. I suppose I was expecting this to not be a very good story because I hadn't heard too much about Revenge. When people say Cybermen stories, they always talk about the 10th Planet, the Tomb of the Cybermen, Earthshock, the Invasion sometimes, but I've never really heard Revenge brought up as one of the big ones. And it wasn't a big one, but I still enjoyed it. The last half of the story was definitely a step up. I didn't particularly enjoy the Vogan Civil War stuff, the arguing between the different factions, the fighting. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I didn't particularly understand it either, actually, but no, I certainly didn't enjoy it too much, but we'll talk about that when we get to those in the character section. I thought the set design was great on the Vogan planet, and I know a lot of it was caves, but I still enjoyed that part of it. I also really enjoyed the set design, obviously, of the Nerva Station. I know it was reused from the Ark in Space, and I know that was to do with budgetary issues, but I think it worked in the same way that like Doctor Who Series 1 sort of used Satellite 5 like a few times. Like I really enjoy that as a concept. Like just because you've got the same set doesn't mean you can still revisit it, you know? It's fine. Keep the set if you're going to do something interesting with it, as did Series 1, as did this season, having them go back to where the TARDIS materialised, but the TARDIS has started going a bit out of control. So yeah, despite the budget issues and all that sort of thing, like that aside, the station still looks gorgeous. The way they've lit it, the way they've shot it, the use of CGI and all that stuff, which we will talk about in just a bit, in a little bit further detail. But yeah, no, there was a lot of interesting things in this second half. I loved the Cybermen. I really thought they were a genuinely brilliant presence, genuinely enjoyable to watch every time the Cybermen or the Doctor was on screen. I was hooked. It's just a shame that they weren't on screen all the time. That's the downside for me. And the last act with the Doctor flying the beacon was incredible. Genuinely brilliant, and we'll get onto that in a little bit more detail in just a bit, but I really do love that. In terms of characters, we're going to start, as we always do, with the Fourth Doctor, on point as always. He's never bad as Tom Baker, from what I've seen so far. A full season of honest-to-God perfection for Tom Baker. Every single story he's in, he brings his all, and it's so clear, and I absolutely love it. It was genuinely interesting to see him combated a little bit by the Cybermen. You know, he's faced off against, you know, the robot, the Daleks, the Wirral, the Sontaran, and it's not like he fights them really easily. Like, it's not like he sort of gets rid of them so quickly, because obviously they're still like long stories. But my point is that, like, with the Cybermen, it feels like he was genuinely conflicted. Like, he tried to stop them, he thought he was winning, and every single time he got thwarted, to the point where he became their slave carrying a bomb on him. The Cybermen genuinely threatened the Doctor. They made the Cybermen feel better because the Doctor was sort of, conflicted with that. So yeah, in terms of the characterization of the Fourth Doctor, brilliant stuff, and obviously, as always, brilliant acting. Sarah Jane Smith was great as per, a little bit less of the focus for the story, which is perfectly fine. She's had a great season, a lot of great stories, a lot of great involvement with those stories. I think it was about time that she took a little bit of a break from this one. Not that she felt like she was less of a presence, I just felt like she wasn't as much of the focus, and her role in the story was a little bit more expendable, a little bit more like what Harry usually gets. But talking about Harry, Harry was great. Genuinely, again, like in Genesis of the Daleks, which got all the companions bang on and gave them enough to do, Harry actually feels like he's doing something. It feels like he's more involved. It feels like he's actually part of the story, which I actually really like. And obviously Sarah Jane was there, but I feel like Harry and Sarah's roles almost swapped a little bit in this story, which I actually quite like. The Vogons, boring. I'm sorry, but they're boring. I loved the idea of Cybermen fighting a sort of gold mine planet. I thought that was brilliant. But these guys, and they're bloody squabbling all the time, back and forward, a civil war breaking out, and I'm like, I don't care about these characters. I know I got criticised for the whole bubble wrap special effects jarp from the Ark in Space, so people are probably going to hit me for this one, but you know, the costume designs were there, but it's still like, there's little emotion you can get from the big rubber faces, and it's like, they're all shouting at each other and arguing. It's like, I don't care. I can't even tell the difference between a couple of them. It becomes confusing, and it just felt a little bit more unnecessary. I just didn't enjoy it that much. But, you know, they were fine. They were standard, they were fine, but that's that. And please, somebody explain why the Seal of Rassilon is in their headquarters. I know there'll probably be a reason, and I could TARDIS wiki it, but I just can't be bothered. So please, someone do inform me on that front, because I have absolutely no idea. The Cybermen were brilliant as per. I mean, they're great. I'm a big fan of the Cybermen, and even though this isn't their best story, it certainly is not their best. It's not even near the best. There's still bits that make it one of the highlighted Cybermen episodes. I really do enjoy this, despite its sort of major flaws in comparison to stuff like Earthshock and 10th Planet and Tomb of the Cybermen, etc. Like, it is still really enjoyable. It's just not that, it's not got that same push, you know what I mean? That being said, I really did like what it did. The Cybermen in this story, as well as the actual story in itself, felt very Earthshock, which I actually kind of like. And that's all I really want to say about that. We're going to talk about the best bits now. I've only got a couple things to mention today, opposed to 3. That's not because the story's worse, just like notable points. You know, there's only a couple that stand out to me. First of all, I want to talk about the special effects. Now, I watched Revenge of the Cybermen with the updated special effects on the Blu-ray collection box set. Now, I know not a lot of you will have access to that, so hopefully I've included some footage on screen that you can see the updated quality for, but my god, it improved my viewing of this story so much. Yeah, I'm very critical when it comes to visual effects and editing, because, you know, it's what I do. I'm a media student at uni, so I'm going to pick apart things more than I usually would, or even should. I'd love to be able to sit back and just mindlessly watch an episode of Doctor Who, but I can't. Even with Modern Who, I do try and pick it apart. You know, I've loved season 12 overall, which we'll talk about in the live stream this weekend. But I think in general, it has pulled me away, especially with the Ark in Space and the Vogan costumes and stuff. However, here, the CGI for the space shots, the actual beacon in space, the shots of the Cybermen spaceship, and particularly the final scene, which we're going to talk about in a minute, were so good. I was honestly blown away. Like, it's not perfect, you know, it's certainly not up to the scratch for modern Doctor Who. It's not what I wouldn't see one of these shots in modern Doctor Who and be like, oh wow. I'd be like, oh, that looks a bit dodgy. But for classic Who, this works. I'd absolutely love it if they had done a little bit more VFX updates on some of the other ones. Maybe Ark in Space as well, considering it's the same space station. They could have just reused the model. I don't know, but I really do like what they did with this, especially seeing the model shots of the Nerva beacon in Ark in Space, then seeing it in this story. It was such a step up, and yeah, massive props to the people who did the VFX work. It was incredible, and it really elevated my viewing experience for this story for the very first time. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens on other box sets as well when it comes to the whole VFX upgrades. The other best bit I can think about is towards the end of the story. You've got Sarah Jane and you've got the Fourth Doctor flying the Nerva beacon away from Volga. It's exciting, it's thrilling, and I know that sounds stupid, but for the first time in Classic Who, I've been genuinely excited and on the edge of my seat. You've got other stories and all that sort of thing which are good, sure, but I can kind of see where it's going, or it's a famous enough story that I already know where it's going. With this, neither was the case. It wasn't really that famous of a story, and I didn't really know where it was going. The speed they were travelling, how close they were getting to the planet, I was genuinely curious to see how they were going to get out of this. And my god, I was on the edge of my seat. I was thrilled, and it was exciting. Now that could be because of the CGI enhancements, obviously, to make it look a bit more realistic, but still, I have to praise it. It's very good, and I did really enjoy it as a Doctor Who story, or the ending of a Doctor Who story, I should say. Overall, for Revenge of the Cybermen, it's a weird one. I understand why people don't like it, and to be honest with you, my first experience being with the CGI enhancements, I have to kind of take that away and sort of judge it as a story by itself. I love the Cybermen stuff, I love the stuff with the Doctor and companions. The virus stuff and the vulgar stuff, I'm not 100% keen on, but I'm willing to look past it. I think this story does go underrated, criminally so. I think it stands on its own 2 feet alongside some of the greats of season 12, and it's very, very exciting. I really, really enjoy it, and I can't help that. So overall, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. It's as good as some of the other classic serials we've talked about. It's not bad, it's not terrible, it's either fine or it's good for me. I would have to rewatch it again to really make a proper, harsh judgment, but to be honest with you, I enjoyed it. And that's what I'm taking out of it, like I enjoyed it and I would watch it again. Anyway, that's that for this review, but what's next on the Ace Creeper channel in terms of Classic Who content? Well, we've got another season to do. We've finished season 12 now. I put out a poll on Twitter to work out what season will be next, and you guys voted for season 26, Sylvester McCoy and the classic era of the show's last ever season. Battlefield, Ghostlight, Curse of Fenric, and Survival. 4 stories in this one, so it won't last as long, obviously. But yeah, no, we're going to have a week break next week, and then we're going to be back the week after with Battlefield to talk about that. So that should be very exciting, hopefully. I don't really know. I don't know whether it's loved or hated by fans. From what I've seen, people seem to enjoy these stories, but I'm hoping to get into that and break it down, at least my opinion anyway, in a couple of weeks' time. This Saturday, me and my mate Jack will also be doing a overall review of season 12, talking about all the stories that we've talked about over the last few weeks. So if you want to join us for that live stream, even if it's just a bit of a chinwag, we're going to be talking about season 12, we're going to be talking about a bit of Classic Who, we're going to be talking about a bit of New Who. So yeah, feel free to join, ask some questions, join in the conversation, should be a bit of a laugh. But yes, that is that for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment below for any more suggestions in the future, subscribe to the channel with notifications on if you haven't already. We've got a Patreon page if you want to support the channel with early access content and other lovely stuff, but it's totally optional, but it is there in the description below, as is my Twitter and Instagram, so you can check those out as well. That's all from me. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.